In a career which spanned 45 years, he executed 361 people. Hello and welcome back to my channel, and you join me at 5 o'clock in the morning at Stansted Airport. Now if I wanted to have a day out in London, I'd first need to take a local bus and then catch a train, and the total cost would be £49.10 for a return journey. But if my train departed before 9 o'clock in the morning, that cost would rise to £75, and that's without spending any money on food, drink or entertainment. In contrast, my flight today was £9.99 each way, plus £4 each way for a seat. That's £27.98, a difference of £47.02. So let's see how little money I can spend on my day out in Nuremberg. But first, I've got to get there, and that means the morning flight with Ryanair. Well, I've made it to Nuremberg. I was getting a bit worried at the airport, thought I wouldn't make it. All the alarm bells of not having the correct paperwork and a passport that was a date problem, all those other horror stories that go through your mind. And I spent the last couple of days just making sure that I got all the correct paperwork for travel, all the certification, the vaccine certificate, and I even brought with me little buffet of face masks as well, just in case I thought I might need them. You never know if the rules and regulations change from one day to the next. But I've made it here, and the weather lovely and warm, about 17-18 degrees, similar to what it was at Stansted this morning. And I do like Nuremberg, it's such a fantastic place. I've actually been to Nuremberg before. It's about 3.5 years ago. Came here for a few days to look at the history, and there's plenty of it. I guess Nuremberg is famous for the Nazi Party and its rallies and the rally ground that used to be, well, it's still there. The ruins are still there on the south side of the city. But it's also famous for the Nuremberg war trials as well. And visit the courthouse where that took place. I went there a few years ago as well. Absolutely fascinating history there. So what am I going to do today? Well, I'm going to try and spend as little money as possible. I don't like spending money unless I absolutely have to. I'm going to head up to the castle, have a walk around there, try and find something for lunch, walk through the town and see what I can discover, and head down towards the Henker Haus, the hangman's house on the River Pegnitz. That'll be interesting to see that. But I'm actually walking around the old walls of Nuremberg on my left hand side, built around the year 1400. And the moat is rather deep and impressive. So we'll go in to have a look at that in a little more detail up by the Kaiserberg, the castle, which is just up here. Walking into the Kaiserberg. Remember this when I was here a few years ago. The impressive tower and the view from the top here, overlooking the whole of the city, really is quite spectacular. Views from the top here are absolutely amazing. Really get a good view of the whole of the city of Nuremberg. It's actually the second largest city in the state of Bavaria. Munich's the largest, and the city is situated on the River Pegnitz. There's been a castle up here for over 1,000 years. Rebuilt in the years 1138 to 1254. It's built on a sandstone ridge above the city. You get quite a good view from the air as well, which shows the castle standing up here, a very prominent position above the town. But on the right hand side here is another fabulously old building, and there's actually a date on it which says 1563. It's been here for that long. There's even some marks on the brickwork, some shrapnel from the Second World War, like bullet holes. Because the castle was heavily attacked and bombed by the Allies during the war, as was most of Nuremberg. And it's only the tower and the chapel area that actually survived. Well, that was good fortune, or with the chapel, divine intervention. But they've rebuilt it from the original stone, just as it was. Remember my last visit here, it's absolutely wonderful. And on a sunny day like today, yeah, what a great place to have a walk around. Absolutely fantastic. The castle and its walls are considered to be one of the best in Europe. It's not difficult to see why. This was the Kaiserberg, the seat of the Kaiser of Germany. The Kaisers were coronated by the Pope. They didn't have a capital city, they just had a Kaiserberg. So wherever the Kaiser was, his castle, that was the seat of power. And for a number of years, it was the castle here in Nuremberg. There is an entrance fee to go through the archway into the inner courtyard and up into the museum. I did that a few years ago, but I don't have time to revisit on this occasion. But as Nuremberg is so steeped in history, I can see myself coming back here time and time again. And just up ahead is the archway which went into the inner courtyard. And again, there's a date on it, 1562. And the stones around the arch do look very impressive indeed. Really is absolutely beautiful here. Absolutely beautiful. Stopped off at the cafe here at the Kaiserberg. Spot of breakfast. I haven't eaten since I left Stansted this morning. I've been up since 3 o'clock. It's quite a long day to do these day trips, but they're so much fun. And it's amazing just how far you can go for 20 quid return on Ryanair. But I've got some breakfast. Got a delicious tomato and ham omelette, nice roll to go with it, and a cup of tea. Can't beat a cup of tea in the mornings. Well, it's 12 o'clock here, so this is my brunch And I've got a nice slice of chocolate cake to have afterwards. Tastes so much nicer when somebody else makes it for you. I do this at home, but it's just nicer in a surrounding like the Kaiserberg here. And this tastes even nicer still because this has been sponsored. So thank you to Maureen McKay, who went online to buy me a coffee and bought several coffees. That was so sweet and so kind of you. And sponsored my breakfast, which is lovely. And if you'd like to sponsor breakfast or a cup of tea or something else, then do as Maureen did and go onto the Buy Me a Coffee link, which you'll find in the description below, and purchase a coffee. And you can get a mention on my channel as well. So I'm going to finish up my lunch, well, brunch, and then continue exploring the town of Nuremberg on the way down to the Henker Haus. Breakfast was delicious. Thank you, Maureen. Oh, I needed that just after a busy morning. I've been walking around since breakfast around the buildings here at the Kaiserberg and looking at the architecture, the windows and the doors. Absolutely amazing architecture here. Absolutely brilliant. It's lovely walking down the hill through the main gate. There's this lovely building on my right hand side. All fabulous architecture. It's interesting to see the model of the Kaiserberg as well, just outside the cafe. It really was a nice little visit here. I enjoyed my visit last time, and I enjoyed my visit today as well. And I will return. I want to go back into the museum in the inner courtyard and go up the tower as well. Didn't do that last time, so that's something to aim for on another visit here. But with a day trip, I can only do so much in a day, and there's other things I want to do and see here while I'm in the city. It wasn't too busy in there either. Normally you visit major tourist attractions. There's loads and loads of people and tour groups of screaming kids, but not today, which is absolutely brilliant. But let's head down into, well, let's just go for a wander down here and look at the ramparts and the walls of the castle and the city, I should say, as well. Let's wander up here. So I'm walking underneath the castle. It does look very imposing looking up, and I do like the sandstone walls as well. This sandstone is all over Nuremberg, and there are so many reminders of the city's past. In particular, to the years 1944 and 1945, when Nuremberg was heavily bombed by the Allies. This was the showpiece of the Third Reich. The Nazi party held their rallies here, so it was a symbol of power for them. This gateway goes through to the outside of the city walls and to the gardens, and hopefully there'll be a way down to the moat from here as well. This is absolutely delightful. Let's walk through this green archway in the hedge and into the gardens. And so many castles and so many cities and towns have got immaculate parks. And this one is an absolute gem. It really is. Just walk down the steps to another little side garden. This goes down towards the moat, which is absolutely huge. Just walk through a bit further and through this little archway at the end. It's lovely just walking up on the wall here, looking at stonework. You can see just how thick it was, or still is, and the moat as well. This was deep and wide. They started building the moat in 1430 and they completed it in 1452. And this was a moat that was definitely going to defend the city from any attacker. And arrived at another entrance gate into the city. Just walk through the gate and across the bridge. Get a good view of the moat from here. Also the impressive entrance arch behind me as well. Absolutely fantastic here, it really is. But let's head back now into town and head down towards the Henker Haus. Just behind me is the church of St. Sebaldus here in Nuremberg. The church was founded around the year 1225, and Sebaldus himself, well, he was a hermit and missionary, and he died in the year 770. His feast day is the 19th of August, and inside the church is a very impressive tomb where he lies. The tomb was designed by Peter Vischer the Elder back in 1503. And St. Sebaldus is the patron saint of Nuremberg. Now I've had a little look through the history books and I found two interesting organists. The first was a man called Hans Christoph Haydn, and he was the organist here from 1596 to the year 1616. And he was dismissed for adultery. Naughty organist. And the second was a man called Johann Pachelbel, and he was the organist here from 1695 to 1706, and history remembers him as a famous composer. Much of the music that he composed is very familiar to everybody today, including his Canon in D, which is usually referred to as Pachelbel's Canon. An absolutely beautiful church inside. The interior architecture is so different and so striking compared to English churches and cathedrals. And the wall memorials inside, the carvings, very ornate. And the stained glass windows, just absolutely superb. They were all taken out before the war and put into storage and then replaced. The church was heavily damaged during the Second World War, and they've rebuilt it absolutely fantastic, the way they've rebuilt it. And on the outside is the plaque to Johann Pachelbel, Nuremberg's famous composer. Oh, we can hear the bells of St. Sebaldus. What a lovely sound. Well, there's actually a funeral taking place in there now, so my condolences to the family. But it's lovely to hear the bell. This is Karlstrasse, and just down here on the right hand side is Nuremberg's Toy Museum. I visited here a couple of years ago, and it's well worth visiting. The array of toys they have on display really is vast in every single category. It's formerly the Lydia Bayer collection. It was started by Paul and Lydia Bayer, and their toy collection goes back to the 1890s. Opened as a museum in 1971, but the building it's housed in, it dates from 1517. It's the Hallersches House, and it was named after Wilhelm Haller, who was a Nuremberg nobleman. And rather a fine building and a very fine collection of toys. There are so many museums within the city. You'd be here for several weeks to actually get round to visiting them all. Guess I'll have to come back and spend more time in this fantastic city. But now let's find the Henker Haus, or the Hangman's House, and tell the story of Franz Schmit, Nuremberg's executioner. Just along from the toy museum is the Maxplatz, and on the left hand side is a really striking building indeed. It's about 500 years old. It's a former wine cellar running to a local wine merchant. It's now student accommodation. It's just one of the many fantastic old buildings here in Nuremberg. Like so many, they've all been renovated and rebuilt after the war, which is just lovely to see. Unlike towns and cities in England, which just put up a bog standard 1950s architecture style building. See why people come to Nuremberg. Oh, the architecture. This is the Max Brook, or the Max Bridge, and it goes over the River Pegnitz, and the view from up here is absolutely amazing. It's absolutely lovely on this bridge, just watching the river and looking at the architecture. Really is one of the best locations throughout the city. The actual bridge was built in 1850, 1852 and replaced an earlier bridge that was built here back in 1457. And just ahead is the wooden bridge which connects the south side of the city to a little island. And on the island is the Henker Haus, the home of Franz Schmit, former executioner of Nuremberg. Franz Schmit was the executioner here in Nuremberg from 1578 to 1617. In a career which spanned 45 years, he executed 361 people, mainly by beheading. One of those was a man called Hans Froschel, and he was a former woodturner, and he turned into a thief. And he was executed by beheading on May the 18th, 1591. He was actually sentenced to hang, but personally requested beheading. I guess that was quicker, especially by the hand of an expert swordsman like Franz Schmit. Far better to be beheaded than to die of slow strangulation on the end of a rope. He actually documented all his work, including all those who had died at his hand. He wrote it down into a book which has actually been published. You can actually purchase it online. Now, I actually have a copy and I have read it, and the subject matter is a little morbid, but it's a fascinating insight into the life of a very strange profession, let's put it that way, a very unusual profession. And to have a documentation as impressive as this book really is quite unusual in the executioner's world. And this is the bridge by which he would have walked, and so were the condemned as they were led out of the south gate of the city of Nuremberg and to their fate. Well, I found this delightful little cafe. I spent most of the day just wandering around, looking at all the sights and the architecture, doing everything that's free to visit. And there's so much to see here that is free. The church of St. Sebaldus, the outside of the castle, and of course walking along the river, and the Maxplatz, and the outside of the Henker Haus as well. There is a charge to go into the centre of the castle. There's also a small charge, I think, of €2 to get into the Henker Haus. But there's more, to be honest, in the book. If you read the book, there's a lot more to be discovered in the book than there is in the museum. But it's still worth a visit if you read German, because all the signs are in German. So, yeah, you need to speak German in order to enjoy the Henker Haus or buy the English translation of the book. But it's a delightful little cafe, and I have a nice large cappuccino. Oh, that's lovely, that really is. And thank you to Maureen for sponsoring this coffee as well. I've just had the most brilliant day here, and I'll come back again, hopefully spend longer than just a few hours, but it's quite doable from Stansted Airport to come here to Nuremberg and do a day trip. I've got about 6-7 hours to wander around, and I've used all that time quite effectively and enjoyed every minute of every building that I've been into. It's been brilliant here. But back to work tomorrow, and back to reality. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we'll see you soon for another adventure somewhere else.